AI Limit, the brand new Souls-like that's been on my mind for the last few days. I've been obsessed with this game. This game hit me harder than crack hit 1980s America. The main problem I had with it though, was that it was just a little too easy. To combat this, and give myself more of a challenge, I decided to do a run where I don't level up a single time. Along with this, I don't gather any life due to increase my healing, which for you Dark Souls heads out there, that basically means no undead bone shards, so I'm stuck with a level 1 Estus Flask. I also didn't reinforce my seal. If you liked the video at any point in time, feel free to drop a like or a sub, because we're inching closer and closer to getting to 1,000. Enjoy the run! Starting out in the sewer, we make quick work of the first boss fight, as he is this game's equivalent of the Soldier of Godric. Then we head to Asteria to pick up our Estus and our starting weapon. The starting weapon we get is the Blader Greatsword, because this gives us the highest amount of strength, which will actually come into play later. After making our way through the rest of the sewer, we get to the first real boss, Lord the Lost Lancer. This boss wasn't too hard, because all you really need to do is just land a couple of well-timed parries. I was a little sloppy in this fight, and a couple other fights as well, but to be fair to myself, I was watching Dexter on my second monitor, so I was a little distracted at some points. After making it to the hub area, I go ahead and buy all the consumables I can from the merchant, because consumables in this game are actually pretty good, and I had a feeling I would need them for later on. Scavenger Patriarch gave me a little trouble, and it was mostly due to his swinging animations. He starts to swing, and then it slowly comes around, which I mean, I get it's a giant heavy hammer he's swinging, but it made me parry just a little too early so many times. Plus he was doing a fair bit of damage. Panic Reaper was a boss that I was expecting to have some trouble on, but I actually ended up getting him my first try. I thought I was going to have to use a lot of my consumables to whittle him down, but all it took was a fire paper. Grey-Faced Partner didn't give me any trouble, and was taken out on my first try as well. As you can probably tell from this point, the parry spell frame is going to hard carry me through a lot of these bosses. I didn't clip it, but before the Cleansing Knight, I went to the Lost Blader right before the Cleansing Knight and killed them so I could get the Corrupted Blader Longsword. I got this because the weapon art is actually pretty good. It's one of the few weapons that I can still use with how low my stats are, and it can proc bleed, or piercing as this game calls it. For the fight against Cleansing Knight, I did struggle for a little bit. Some of his moves are a little tricky, especially the one where he's spinning around like a Beyblade, so I messed up my timing on the parry quite a few times. And taking a single hit usually knocked around 60% of my health off.
Alright, you cross the line. Ooh, chat, do they get it? Really? Honestly, what was your first thought? Fuck. Damn. I tried to imitate that butthurt, but I'm just not that kind of guy. I don't know, I guess I just don't have that butthurt kind of trait quality in me.
I really don't have anything of note to say about Saint, except for this is the fight where I started to use the Claw spell frame for additional damage output. That's about it, so I'll just let the fight play out. I couldn't abuse the parry mechanic in the Choir Master fight, because he doesn't get full staggered by parries, and he really only has one move that can be parried anyway, and he doesn't do it often. Some of his lightning attacks could one-shot me, and the ones that didn't wiped about just my whole health bar. After Choir Master, I got the first merchant document, which allowed me to buy infinite amounts of certain consumables, and then I stocked up like crazy. I was going into the Hunter of Blader fights feeling pretty confident. I was loaded up on consumables like crazy, and was hoping they could help carry me through the fight. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out that way, and she sent me to jail. This little area in the jail was kind of annoying to go through. I tried a couple of times to just run through it and get to the ladder as quick as possible and get on it without fighting, but if you get hit on a ladder, you instantly drop off of it, so running through wasn't actually an option. On the second go around at Hunter of Bladers, I had a lot of time to perfect my strat, because I died quite a bit. What I ended up doing was spamming all of my throwables as soon as the fight started, which usually would just sit there and face tank because of the stagger they caused. Originally I started out by throwing poison knives, but I died so many times I ran out of them. So I ended up only having the magnetic surges and the mini bombs. After that, I would usually activate the claw spell frame and heal to full, and then switch between the lightning dash and parry as needed. I had to be extra careful in this area and move a little bit quicker, because the lightning bolts that hit you here would instantly one-shot me. And from what I'm aware, these can't be dodged. But it's possible that's just a skill issue. Now we get to the boss that caused me the most trouble in the entire run. Persephone. I was stuck on this boss for probably about 2 hours. She was doing a whole lot of damage to me, but I wasn't doing a whole lot of damage to her. Through both phases, it felt like I was hitting her with a Q-tip.
the energy density. It's dangerous. Take cover.
The Winged Colossant was practically the same as the Saint fight, so to avoid redundancy, I'll just skip over it. Although I did manage to first try it. This next part wasn't necessary to the run, because I wasn't going for the good or true ending, but I wanted to see if it was possible. In order to access the area required for those two endings, you gotta do some platforming, and there were a couple of drops, with one especially big drop at the bottom. So I thought there'd be no way to do that without any increased health. But to my shock, you could. It was close, but you could. At the factory, I went around breaking all the batteries that killed the giant robot, and there was some difficulty to that because the laser beam one-shot me. Eventually, though, after a few deaths, I got all the batteries destroyed, and then I'm able to collect an iridescence for my efforts, which will now allow me to max upgrade my weapon. The first two phases of Eunomia didn't give me much trouble, but the third phase whooped me pretty bad. If you didn't get to keep your progress once you made it to phase 3, I'd still probably be attempting this run right now. I was getting beat so hard that I had to resort to my ultimate strategy that I always use in Dark Souls when I get stuck on a boss. I take all my clothes off. No way.
Here. I'm bored. This game ends now.
Alright, that's it. I'm getting naked.
Let me show you. Well done. I'm impressed.
Nudity buff undefeated. I think the Seraphim Absolver was a good example of how good the Corrupted Longsword's weapon art can be. The first hit will semi-stagger a lot of bosses and enemies, and then you're pretty much free for the rest of the follow-up. Plus, it does quite a good amount of damage. The gauntlet after Seraphim put me on the struggle bus. I don't know what it was about the Winged Guardian, but 9 times out of 10, he would fly at me at the start of the fight and then slam down, and I would just miss both parries and die immediately. There was also a time or two where I got to the last fight, the Choir Master knockoff, and I would get him down to around 10% HP, and then I mess up a dodge and get one shot by his lightning or killed by the lightning guards he summoned. I even ended up having to pull my strat out again to get him taken down. The hardest part of the Loskid fight for me was Phase 1, mostly because I couldn't hit a parry to save my life. At first, my strat was to poison her with throwing knives in Phase 1, to try to get to Phase 2 as quick as possible, but that's when I found out she can parry your projectiles and throw them back at you, which of course would one-shot me when thrown back. She doesn't do this in Phase 2, at least she never did during my run, so I decided to save most of my projectiles for Phase 2. Another thing that killed me a lot in Phase 1 was when she would get to around half health, she supercharges her sword with lightning and swings it in a giant circle. As you can probably guess, if I got hit by this, I was immediately dead. And I got hit by it a lot. Eventually, I was able to get it together and actually start hitting my parries, and finally managed to get to Phase 2. I switched from parry to lightning dash for Phase 2, because I had a way easier time dashing around her attacks than parrying them. I also spammed every throwable I had of her, and I mean every single one.
Your fortitude shall be tested in this clash of weapons. Rank 1. Focus and exceed the boundaries. Rank 2. Rank 3. Rank 4. Only a true battle can hone your resolve. Impressive. You have bested me.
Now for the final boss. Aether didn't take me too long to get down, only took around 4 tries, but the final attempt was cutting it pretty close. I ended the fight without a singular healing item left, not even a mud ball. What really sucked though, was that I wasn't ever able to proc poison on him, whether it be because he's immune to poison, or I just didn't hit him with enough knives quick enough. I don't know what it was, but it was kind of a bummer.
Stop dodging. Have you forgotten how to strike?
You are but a creation.
And there you have it. AI limit at level 1. And for any Debbie Doubters out there, here's the stat page and the sealed page to show you nothing was leveled up or enhanced. All in all, still wasn't as difficult as I hoped it would be. I might have to come up with some other ideas to up the ante a little bit. But until then, thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed.